So, for example, I don't know how many people have thought about this, but it's kind of interesting to know that 7 of the top 10 largest stadiums in the world belong to college sports. That's really, really crazy because, I mean, these are stadiums holding more than 100,000 people. Yes, I know most of them are football, but if you think about, for most of you guys thinking about, doing college sports and especially at the Division 1, Division 2, Division 3 level, one of the things that we don't, at least, because you're so focused in training, that we don't take time to think about is really the level of competition that you add, especially at the NCAA level. And also, thinking about, how many high school athletes are doing sports and how many will transition to college, for scholarship or to continue playing. And that's about 2% within the US. Now, this is by any means not meant to discourage anybody thinking about that, transitioning to college to play sports. If anybody really, I'm really, really big in encouraging students to try it out and see if it works out. You never know. Not every student who's a star in the NCAA level of sports was probably being looked at in high school. So yes, there's a lot of people doing sports, but 2% is also this is huge. This is considering the number of NCAA student athletes, and that's not considering the other athletic category as NAIA and also junior colleges. And also, again, interesting fact, in most states in the US, the highest paid state official, that will be probably either the head football coach or the basketball coach. I'm pretty sure most of you guys know how much, some of these salaries are. I'm probably not gonna, go into the details for that, but it's, it just kind of tells you the level of, I guess, commitment, needed to, to play in these levels. And again, anybody, offering a coach that much salary, they probably know that they're going to get a return out of that. So, and then the last one, which is probably my most interesting part is, which is kind of a question for the audience to think about is, what if the NCAA, whether it's Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, pick the top 3 athletes, just like qualifying for the Olympics. What if the NCAA was a country in the Olympics? How many countries do you think, or where do you think the NCAA will finish in the medal stands? I'm curious to see what the audience thinks about that, because it's my theory is that there will be I'll probably give my answer in the end. Okay. So thinking about athletics, one of the things I wanted to give is just kind of like a really brief or general overview of University of Arizona athletics. We are a Division 1 program, and within athletics, I think there's about, or maybe more than 500 student athletes within the different sports. Division 1 is, as most of you guys know, is probably one of the most widely known. And again, I don't want to say it's the super most competitive. There are some really, really good Division 2 programs out there. But Division 1 is where University of Arizona is. And as such, when you look at our facilities, and especially when it comes to training facilities and other support facilities at the university, they have to be top notch. Part of it because recruiting athletes, and especially some of the ultra competitive sports like basketball, football, things like that, it becomes it's almost, they have to use these facilities as a showcase for some of the high profile recruits. So in this case, I think our basketball stadium holds about 14,000 people. But if you look at the facilities itself for training, I think there's about 4 gyms, 4 training facilities as far as strength and conditioning, weight rooms, what we call weight rooms. There's about 4. There's a main one, football has one, basketball has one, and some of the other sports, for example, track and field has a off-site, even though it's a mini one, but it is there. So a lot of facilities, within the university. In addition to that, there's also a lot of academic support. Our academic facility, it's a building by itself where tutors, are held, where, academic advisors for the student athletes, where learning specialists for student athletes. So there's going to be, especially when it comes to academic support, one of the things that I love about athletics, and especially University of Arizona, there's no guesswork. Every student schedule, their GPA, the times, and all those things, it's not. Like, everything is really, really arranged really well, and students are able to, to follow through throughout the semester and have a lot of support as they go forward. And when it comes to international students, University of Arizona has been recruiting international students for quite some time. And so is, probably most of the big Division I programs out there. I think I'll probably say, and I don't know how many people in the audience have heard of Sage Watson. Yeah, she's an Olympian from Canada. That's just one of the names, but typically speaking, we have quite a number of international students in any given any given year, and especially when you look at programs like tennis and golf and track and field and even basketball. Typically, there's quite a few international students that are in the roster. So again, interesting. I think one of our student athletes will probably going to cover this a little bit more. But if you think about, a typical day for a student, it really depends on the sport. But one of the things that I would like to mention is, at least at the University of Arizona, having a schedule as a student athlete is actually quite easy, because most of our student athletes, they register about a month before the rest of the student body registers. So in this case, they are able to pick, classes that are going to fit within their training program. In this case, most students are not going to take classes, past 12 o'clock, unless it's their senior year and there's no classes available, et cetera, et cetera. So a typical day, most sports will probably be training in the morning. So in the morning they'll start training, and then after they finish, training in the morning, they'll go to classes, and then they'll probably have training in the afternoon as well. As far as housing, we do have dorms that are designated to student athletes. So that really helps a lot, especially in the freshman years, where students are clustered within the same dorm, where they can support each other and be able to progress academically as they try to learn about the big university, or like the campus. The next one, as I mentioned a little bit more on the schedule planning, there is a lot of support when it comes to scheduling, especially as mentioned, because students are going to register about a month before other students register. In this case, they can plan really well. Now, having said that, when it comes to the competition, some of the sports are very, very demanding. Again, during COVID, it's a little bit different, but the travel schedule, is really demanding on students. That probably means that, some classes will be missed, and especially when it comes to the NCAA tournament. Having said that, though, a lot of the students will, the faculty, the athletic departments works with the faculty in these classes to make them aware that these are students who are doing sports, and their schedule might be demanding, et cetera, et cetera. So in this case, also when students travel, they're able to do their work. Most of the sports, especially the big sports, and they travel with the academic advisors and the learning specialists. So if a student is, let's say, is in Iowa for competition, their academic support is going to go with them on these trips. So this, in this case, they're able to, to stay on track. So like I said, when it comes to support for the, within the academics part to, make sure that these students are making progress, I haven't seen anywhere where, students are very well supported as much as, athletics does the job. Yeah. So this is probably one of the big ones, and I'm assuming that a lot of the, other colleagues from other universities are probably touched on this. Getting scholarship is very interesting. And one of the things that I always mention to students is, there's, athletic scholarship, there's also academic scholarships, different ways of going at it. But one of the things that I usually tell students, and especially when I'm traveling, is, understanding a college coach's mindset, and especially because of how competitive, this program is. A lot of coaches out there, they really have an idea of what they're looking for. And a lot of them will spend a lot of times recruiting or, building networks in different parts of the world, that are going to help them identify prospective athletes. So if you're trying to reach out to a coach and, they don't respond to you right away, it doesn't mean that they're ignoring you. You just, probably have to try again. But one of the things that I usually tell students is, take a look at the program's roster. If you, let's say, for example, you're thinking about tennis, take a look at the college, the coaches within the tennis program. If the head coach doesn't respond, take a look at some of the graduate students that might be there. Their workload might be a little bit lighter to try to, to communicate with them, reaching out to them. Again, getting a scholarship obviously it's very, very competitive, and I'm pretty sure most of the colleagues that went ahead of me, mentioned that some of the programs, will offer different level of scholarship, whether it's partial. Some of them might just go with academic scholarship. But there's different ways of that. But again, one of the things that I always encourage students to think about is, if you're good enough, and if you're thinking about, playing in the Division 1, Division 2, or Division 3 level, and trying to see where you are, always, look at the team roster, and from there, look at some of the competitions that they've had, because they're going to post the times, online, or the times on the team roster, and try to compare, those athletes' times and your times, or your averages, just kind of have an idea of, what is the entry point for this program. So when it comes to swimming, what are your times compared to, as a senior, for example, or as a junior, compared to, some of the athletes in the roster already, so that you have an idea of, where you might fall. And again, going back to, going to the next point about eligibility, the keeping eligibility, I believe, as an athlete is probably one of the easiest things to do, because you have so much support around you. As I mentioned, at University of Arizona, we have a dedicated academic support, center for student athletes. Again, academic advisors, especially the learning specialists, they're going to be, keeping up with you every single, step to make sure that you know about your quizzes and exams and all those things. But, to maintain eligibility, your freshman, your sophomore year, it might be, you're still learning the ropes, but by the time you get to your junior year, you kind of understand, how everything works. So that makes it a little bit easier. And again, one of the things that I always mention too, which kind of goes back to understanding the college mindsets and understanding about, what I mean by recruiting zones. If you look at some of the sports like, track and field, for example, and if you look at, some of the distance, you might find some coaches tend to either recruit from the Caribbean, or, some coaches might be looking at recruiting at, different countries like, Kenya or something like that. I'm just using this as an example. That should not be a, discouraging factor to anybody who is thinking about, for example, University of Arizona. Always, again, reaching out to the coaches, regardless of, where you feel like most of the international students come from, going forward. And again, what I would also like to say is if you reach out and you feel like you got the times or the marks to be competitive, if you don't hear anything, you can reach out to me. I will share my email at the end of this. Another advice, going forward for the students who are not seniors, and again, COVID is probably, upsetting everything. A lot of students get noticed in these sports camps, especially when it comes to basketball, swimming, tennis, and some other sports. A lot of these camps, there's a lot of scouts, recruiting scouts or coaches that, will put together, sports camps. So for example, the basketball coach at University of Arizona will always have a camp in the summer. That's a very, very good place to get noticed as a future student athlete, if it is possible to participate to these camps. Now, having said all those things, as most of the college seasons and programs have been highly affected by COVID. So it remains to be seen what the eligibility will be going forward, and especially for students that were seniors. If I may think of, for example, track and field, last season, they were disrupted, at NCAA level. I mean, that was, canceled. So what is going to be going forward? Are these athletes going to be given their 5th year of eligibility? As you know, you have, 5 years to graduate or to finish your eligibility. So are they going to be given that, more time to compete and that kind of thing? But COVID is really affected, the day-to-day everything of, I just went to the main strength and conditioning facility, or to the main gym for athletes, and I was talking to the coaches there, and they were telling me that how difficult it is now to train athletes, because everything is limited. As soon as one team, or not even a full team, a group of athletes leave, they have to, they come in and just have to wipe everything, and then kind of go forward from there. So it's a little bit tricky, as you probably know. Training right now and also competing is going to be a little bit tricky, which is really unfortunate, but because it's probably the challenges of it. Yeah, so promoting yourself, I think I probably mentioned this a little bit. I think is to me, if I think back in my many years of competing, obviously I didn't know how to market myself as good as the college athletes. I mean, the current college or high school athletes are now, because of social media. But I think if you're reaching out to a coach or anything like that, make sure that you understand your profile. You have a profile, for example, and you can share numbers. For example, if you are a tennis player, or if you're a track and field player, for example, anything that you can share that is going to show the coach that you are not, you are an exceptional. If you won state championships 2 years in a row, etc., that's something that is going to stand out in anybody's mind. But again, I mean, going back to what I was suggesting, if you can look at the program that you're interested in, for example, at University of Arizona, look at the roster, look at, last year's competition results, look at, this year's competition results, if there's anything, see where you fall within that. And then, as you reach out, the more you share with these coaches and the numbers and your times and all that stuff, the more they know that you've done your work. So, and this kind of goes to the same way as reaching out to coaches, make sure that you've done your homework, that it doesn't seem like, you're completely, in the dark about, where the program is. Some of the places that I've traveled, and again, athletes from Canada probably understand this, much better than anybody else. But, some of the places that I've gone, I've had really interested students in doing sports, for example, track and field, and they would say, oh, I ran 400 meters, and I'll be like, okay, well, what is your time? And then they'll give me the time, and I'll be like, well, that's probably not gonna, it's not gonna be for Division I, not even at University of Arizona. So again, doing your own work, I think, is going to help you out a lot. But again, as mentioned before, if you believe you have the times and you're sitting, at a really good level of getting noticed, and you feel like you're not getting noticed, by all means, reach out to me, and I can see, if I can forward your information to the correct people. Again, I mean, so what to include when contacting coaches, and I think as I just mentioned, if you have your times and any championships that you participated, for example, if you represented Canada in World Junior Championships, things like that, if you won state, or any major championships that you've recruited, again, at the Division I level, unfortunately, because it's so competitive, going back to my initial question, if the NCAA was a country in the Olympics, where would they finish? The standards are a little bit pretty high, but that should not be a discouraging factor to anybody. Yeah.